this is your host, Julia Napini. I am a clinical and forensic social worker who owns a counseling practice and a consulting business. In this show, we discuss the challenges of being successful in business while maintaining your integrity and staying true to yourself. Join me while I interview other professionals and share insights from life and experience. Let's talk about RingRx, our latest sponsor. RingRx is a high-quality, HIPAA-compliant telephone, text, and fax communications platform. They provide seamless, cost-effective communications for behavioral therapists, medical practices, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. RingRx is designed for modern healthcare environments. They offer customizable features like a phone app, automated patient outreach, voicemail, after-hours call routing, and top-quality desk phones. Try RingRx for free today at ringrx.com. And if you sign up using the code CLIMB, you'll get 15% off your monthly bill forever. Conditions apply. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Compassionate Climb podcast. I cannot wait to dig into this topic today. So we are going to be talking with someone about charging premium fees for mental health counseling, but doing so while maintaining integrity. Love this. So we have Audrey Schoen. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks so much for having me. I am jazzed. I love talking about money and fees. So this is so exciting for me.
I definitely get that impression. And it's one of those things I'm assuming that with time and practice and more of the conversation, it gets more and more comfortable. So knowing that the audience is probably going to be at all different stages in that spectrum, but I'm really excited to hear from yours. So get us started. Give us some background. Tell us about your career climb and where you are today.
Yeah. Oh man. So, taking us all the way back, I did a lot of the same things that a lot of clinicians do early on, right? Maybe you have a private practice internship. I did that. Work for an agency, got to knock out my hours. I actually liked the agency that I worked at, but the pay was not good, like so many agencies. And I stuck around there for a long time because the work environment was so good, the culture was so good. I was doing really good work. I loved doing it. But then I had twins in 2018, and that was a huge surprise for us. Twins do not run in our family, and it was a surprise set of twins. And so I really, really tried to go back. They were really supportive. But when I did the math on the pay and then what it would cost for childcare, and then I was still trying to breastfeed full time, all this stuff, it literally, I would have taken out zero money for all of that work. And so it just wasn't going to work out. And I decided, okay, I guess it's time for me to really lean into my private practice. I had a couple of clients on BetterHelp of all the places, but it was the brand new company, and this whole idea of online therapy was super brand new. And a lot of my colleagues were like, I don't know, is that even okay? Is that ethical? All that stuff. So I was sort of an early adopter of online therapy. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do my own practice then. And I decided that I was going to get off of BetterHelp. I brought some clients with me off of BetterHelp. And then I just advertised and I started bringing in clients. And I started bringing in clients at like $100 an hour. Because to me, that was like a big deal, right? When you're making 25 at an agency, $100 an hour is like, wow, right? I filled up really fast. So I started increasing my fees, but then I would still offer my reduced fee like really readily before they would even ask, like so many of us do. And so I had clients like after a year, I had clients anywhere from paying like $80 a session all the way to like $175 a session. So I had like this broad range. And I kept thinking like, oh, well, like people will terminate, they'll like finish, and then I'll be able to bring new people in at my new fee, except that I tend to be a long-term therapist. And so many of my clients were sticking around like year after year after year. And I was like, okay, attrition isn't going to do it. And then our childcare situation changed. And I had to get my kids at that, they were 2.5. I had to get them into a daycare preschool or something really quickly. And fortunately, I had already started the process of like rethinking my fees, and I had made the plan to increase my fees. Well, daycare preschool for twins in Northern California was going to cost me $2,500 a month. That's more than a mortgage, like so much money. So I implemented my plan to increase all of my clients to 200. And that took me a few months to implement. Thankfully, I did that because that allowed me to pay for childcare, which of course kept increasing. By the time we were done at 4.5 or 5, it was 3,000.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right? So crazy. So I did the 200 raise, and most of my clients stayed, and I was still overbooked, and I was still booking new clients at 200. In fact, I was like booking more clients at 200. There's something about 200 that's magical for some reason. I don't know. So then I was like, well, I have one spot. I don't need any clients right now. I have one spot open. I really want to charge 350. And so I just kind of like decided one day I was going to set my new rate for new clients at 350.
You jumped from 200 to 350?
For new clients,
wow.
Yeah. I know. I still think I'm crazy for doing that. But I put the number out there, and the second person I did a consult with booked weekly therapy at 350. And she's still a client today she sees me every 2 weeks still. It's been like a little over 2 years now that I've been charging that. And so my current advertised rate is 375. I do have a client at that rate now. I just recently increased it. And so I'm just kind of playing with the edges of, what the market will bear. And also thankful that I did that, because we are in a situation now where we need my income to be more prominent. And so I'm just feeling really fortunate that I made those decisions, because it actually prepared our family for the things that were to come that we didn't know were coming. Yeah.
Cool. So there's so much to that. I think first and foremost, it's so good to hear about someone who's able to start a business and is really able to customize it to their life, and the ebbs and flows and things that change, and volatility and, lack of predictability that is life. But I'm sure that people listening are probably as shocked as I was when I first heard this when we met. And so I think a couple of things that are important to mention. Obviously, geographically, that's a component, right?
It is. I have some thoughts on it, but it is.
So I think one thing that is just an important thing to keep on the table. But then in addition to that, I think that there are also some things that I know that you have done in terms of kind of your own work and mindset to help get there. So help take us from the beginning, new therapist, to where you are now, and what were the biggest contributing factors to this shift that you had to make, which I'm assuming was probably the primary component, because once you do that, then the rest, I'm sure, falls into place. It's a process. You let people know there are stages for the work you did.
Yeah. So it probably actually starts way back when I was working for St. John's, the homeless program. One of the things that we had to do was help coach the women in the program about managing small amounts of money and really getting comfortable with money. And so at that point, I kind of looked at that and I thought, well, how am I supposed to coach them on managing small amounts of money when I even avoid my own bank account and I don't like looking at what I'm right? So at that point, I signed up for a money tracking app, and I got really familiar with my own finances and my own relationship with money. And then the agency actually sent us to a financial coaching seminar, like a 3-day seminar, which was really impactful. It was really awesome. And it really opened my eyes up to a lot of the different ways that emotions and relationships to money impact how we manage our finances, learn about finances, deal with finances. And so that was sort of the seeds of this. And then, for the early part of my practice was supposed to be considered like a hobby business, really. It's the thing that I wanted to do because I could, because my husband's income was enough. But, for those of you who've heard my story, I literally watched my husband killing himself. So he was a full-time police officer and in the reserves. So he's working 50, 60-hour weeks as an officer plus military reserves. And his health was literally suffering. And I was having a hobby business, and it just didn't feel right. And yeah, I was taking care of our twins, but it didn't feel right to watch him do that. And my client's fees were being subsidized by his well-being. And that was just unacceptable to me. So that was like a big recognition. I then joined LIM, the Lean and Make Bank program, right around that same time. Like when I had that recognition is when I joined LIM, because I was like, okay, I'm in, let's do this. And it's a very transformational program. Anybody that's interested in taking it, I always say like, it's money well spent. And that gave me an even deeper understanding of my relationship with money and why I was making the decisions I was making for myself, right? Like each one of us is going to be different. But that gave me a really deep understanding of like my childhood family origin stuff that was influencing it, like my rules and perceptions about money and wealth and like all of these different things. And I had to challenge all of that. And then I had to challenge like how that showed up in the therapy.
Okay.
Like, was I talking about money? How do I tolerate talking about fees with my clients? Why am I uncomfortable with that? Like, this is a vocation. Why am I uncomfortable dealing with the money part of my job? That shouldn't be so uncomfortable. And if it's uncomfortable for me, what am I bringing to the relationship in that discomfort that is impacting how the therapy is going? So then it became clinical, where I was like, oh, there's something here. So that's kind of where that went. And then the 350 decision came out of a calculation I did about how I wanted to live and the things I wanted my income to pay for, and how many hours I can work and still be well, like still take care of my family, still take care of myself, all of that stuff. And 350 was the number that spit out. And so that number didn't come out of thin air. Like that wasn't just a random number I picked. It was actually based on conditions of my life and things that I wanted to pay for and fund for myself and for my family, while still being well in my life.
Makes sense. So starting off, it was really this shift where you have someone that you care about and have started a family with and seeing what his workload was doing to him. And so that started the ball rolling. And then when you join this program, it sounds like that's a whole process in and of itself. But it sounds like you guys went pretty deep in exploring kind of the starting point and where we get these messages about money, but then how it's showing up not only in our personal lives, but in our professional life. Anything that you can share about that program or the work that you've done kind of in between to get to where you are now that somebody listening could benefit from to get the gears turning and start the process?
Yeah, I think one of the things that hit me the hardest is the question of like, who is subsidizing? Right. So when we reduce our fee or we don't charge enough or we're not honoring our own financial needs, someone is subsidizing that. That could be your health. That could be your spouse's income. That could be your children's time and energy. Like could be your mood and well-being. Like it could be so many things. And it's not to say that like, if it's not to say that subsidies are bad. It's to say that if you're subsidizing it in a way that harms you or your family, that's not how you would want your client to live.
True.
So why is that okay for you? Right. And so if you want to offer subsidies, can you build that into your business? Right. So thinking about, am I subsidizing? Who is subsidizing? And is that a conscious decision I made, or is that one I made out of obligation or guilt or fear or shame?
Okay. So that's some of that mindset work. And then help us understand some of the actual procedural stuff that you did with the clients on your caseload and how you structured it and how you wrote it down and time frames to kind of gradually increase the way you have.
Yeah. So when I did the increase to 200, that was my biggest one. And what I looked at was, for each client, how long have I been with them? How much of a difference is it? For some people, it was more than double. And then like, what timeline am I going to do this on? Right. So for people where it was like, I get for $50 or less of an increase, it was one jump, 60 days notice.
Okay.
For people who were more than a $50 increase, I did monthly increases until we reached 200 or until they couldn't afford it. And then we discussed a transition plan. But I was very just frank about like, I've looked at my practice. I have assessed my financial needs. This is a decision that I need to make. I understand that this impacts you. Would you like to just talk about it? How, like, the feelings that are coming up. And so we brought it into the clinical space. And in some cases, like, we had really fruitful discussions about, you know, what did it mean for them to be paying less than my full fee for so long and for me to subsidize their care. And I had one client in particular that bargained with everyone in her life. And we brought that into the therapy room and we talked about like, what's the role of that? Where did that come from? Where, like, what's that do for you? And like really do some significant inner work on why bargaining was just an automatic thing for her and what that did to her relationships. Wow. So like, it wasn't just that I was delivering a fee increase, right? It was like, here's something I need. And I'm letting you know that I need this. So I'm honoring my needs and my boundaries. And I'm saying that I understand that it impacts you. And also, by the way, can we talk about money in your life?
So you're doing your own work outside of the therapy room. You bring it into the therapy room. Then you really utilize this as an opportunity to have those conversations with clients, which I'm assuming helps you through your own work as well. You're leaning into discomfort. You're having the conversation to a point where I'm assuming it hopefully gets more comfortable, but then it also sheds light on some more things that can be a part of their treatment.
Absolutely.
So with statistics, can you give an estimate of a number? Let's say when you increased to 200, what percentage of your caseload was unable to make that shift?
2 people.
Out of
I don't remember. I think my caseload was like 20 something odd clients at varying frequencies.
Okay.
Under 30, just under 30 active clients at varying frequency. 2 people.
With the 2, can we speak to that? Because those are the ones that my mind goes to in general. How did that conversation go? And what was your...
Yeah. So 1 didn't go well. And I kind of expected it. It was here's what I need to do. We have 60 days. We can continue to work on and try to wrap up our work. And she said that won't be necessary. And I said, would you like referrals? She said, no, thank you. I'm going to go now. And that was a 10-minute conversation. And that was it. And I was like, okay. And that was it. And I was like, okay, that sucked. And I kind of had a feeling that's probably how it would go. The other person, we had that conversation. She said, I totally understand. I'm glad that you are taking the steps you need to honor your needs, and that won't be a fee that I'm able to afford. I would love some referrals. Wow. And we can finish out our work. So we had a few more sessions at that rate. We finished out whatever work we could. And then I tried to help connect her with an insurance-based therapist so that she could continue the work that we started.
Wow. So you had made the comment about the fact that you have thoughts about the geographic area. Do tell me.
Yeah. So I actually did a survey at one point because I kept getting people saying, well, you're in California, it's different. And I'm like, yes, it is different. I get that. I do. And I put a survey up in like one of the biggest therapist Facebook groups. And I said, if you charge, I think it was $200 or more, can you comment with your city and state? And I got comments from, I think all but like 5 states. And some of them were like, I'm in rural Indiana. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Yeah. Like, I'm in rural Wyoming. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I think that yes, location and state do matter, but there are people that have means in every state.
Very true.
Right? There are pockets of wealth in every state. Right. And so while there are going to be some economic differences in cost of living and in terms of like, median income, I wouldn't let that pigeonhole you as like a default truth.
Okay.
That I never do that. Right. Will it take a different approach? Will it maybe take longer to get there? Will you have to consider what specialties you offer or whether you're online or in person? Yeah, there's going to be conditions that you're going to have to consider. Right. But don't take it as fact. Just face value.
That's a great point. The other piece that makes me think of, though, is you kind of cast this net, you get this feedback, and it's important for people to know. I mean, we'll always need, I think, those practices or those practitioners that do take insurance. It
Of
makes me
course.
think about value system, and let's weave integrity into the conversation. So how would you say that you've continued to preserve that throughout all of this? You didn't get a lot of pushback from clients, which I'm assuming is probably helpful. A lot of the clinicians that are considering this but maybe hesitate, I'm sure that a big part of that is the discomfort and assuming that clients are going to struggle, especially if they've already brought up in session their financial struggles or that they've gone through a divorce or lost a job. But I'm also assuming it really comes down to priority. Would you agree? It's really about that individual client. Yeah.
It's both, right? So if the dollars aren't there, the dollars aren't there. There's a reality to the number of dollars you have, right? And people's relationship to money dictates how they allocate it, even when there is enough, right? And so I might have a client who is really stressed about money and really struggling with this and struggling with that, but then I find out that they're overspending on Amazon. They go to Dutch Brothers and get coffee every single day. And I'm like, and they just went to Disneyland, and it's like, okay, you're paying me $80 an hour, but you go to Disneyland every year. You get your eyelashes done every 4 weeks. And you like, no,
and there's
thank
no
you.
judgment there, but that is clearly that priority. And if that's what you want to prioritize, but that can happen.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I'm not subsidizing your Disneyland trips because I can't afford to take my family to Disneyland. And that doesn't feel aligned in integrity with me. That's out of integrity for me to offer a subsidy to somebody and then have them be spending it in places that I don't have access to. That doesn't feel good to me if that's something I want access to too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where for me, staying in integrity is being able to pay attention to those shifts and awarenesses to be like, am I okay with charging everyone $150, knowing that some of my clients will have more means than I will? Is that in integrity for me?
Okay.
And the answer is yes, and that's great. For me, sliding my scale and not charging my full fee and having somebody doing things and paying for things that are their priority, but I'm not subsidizing them.
Okay.
Not an integrity for me. The other piece of this, in terms of like you talked about, like the insurance versus private pay and all that, I think one of the things that I have a gripe with insurance is that you cannot dictate how many people you take, right? Yeah. And that for me is out of integrity. For me, it doesn't allow me to control my income in a way that maintains my well-being.
Right.
And so for that reason, I'm not able to take insurance because it's out of integrity for me, right? For those who take insurance and feel like that is a priority for them, then it's just figuring out, how do I stay in financial integrity with myself so that I can do that, right? So it can go either way.
Absolutely. So you seem very clear on your own values. Has there ever been a time as you've been increasing your rate where it has ever felt disingenuous on behalf of the client?
Not for me. I've had plenty of clients who do consults with me and say, that is not a rate that I can afford. Or I've even had someone say, well, that's substantially higher than most of the rates I've seen. And I say, yes, you're correct.
And they knew going into this consult that that's what you charge?
Well, they had the opportunity to see it, whether they read my website or not, or whether they actually saw it or not, that's a different story. But the fact, I think the place of it for me is that I can sit with the fact that that number is attached to something real in my life, that $350 an hour is attached to my personal family financial goals and my well-being, so that it's not a random number.
Right.
Like I am.
That's your true north through all of it.
Yeah. Right. And so when somebody says that's higher than most, I can afford that, I said, that's okay. It's okay. You're right. And it doesn't bother me.
Okay. Well, because you've described a lot of the work that you did to get there. And when you have loved ones, daycare, the situation with your husband, those are very vivid things that you can draw upon maybe in those moments where it is a struggle. And so we can all call upon that for ourselves. And even if it is just our own self-care, avoiding burnout, whatever it may be, that's okay too.
That's enough, right? Like that is enough. Yes.
So the other question I have, you have a Facebook group, and I've watched how you really coach a lot of people that might be struggling with this. So what is some of that process for you? I'm assuming that it kind of follows a lot of what we've talked about here, but is there anything you haven't touched upon that you've seen that has been successful helping clinicians who have taken insurance or who really struggle to adopt this?
Yeah, I think fear of judgment from other clinicians is actually a huge one. And I'm really careful to cultivate a culture in my Facebook group where that is not welcome. But I find that one of the biggest barriers is judgment and fear. I know that for myself, when I would be in groups with therapists and we would be discussing fees or money or something, and I would disclose that I charge $350, like you could see the discomfort. I'd see the discomfort in other people's bodies. And at first I was like, oh, they're judging me. And what I had to come to realize is that discomfort isn't a judgment of me. And maybe they are having those thoughts, but that's not about me. That's about their own discomfort with that number and charging that for therapy, and that it's digging up something deeper for them financially. And I don't know what that is. And maybe they don't want to. And that's fine. But I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've had to work through, and I continue to work through as I interface with more and more people, and as I plan to like increase my rates and look at like doing other things at higher premium fees, you know?
Well, there are other things that it makes me think of, and I'd love to hear your commentary on this. But for those that are maybe in the in-between, they're not fully there yet, and maybe there's a part of them that even if they're private pay only and they want to charge a premium fee, that struggle with maybe clients who did not necessarily respond the way yours did, or who have that scarcity mindset, or who want to offer, whether it's sliding scale, maybe want to get involved with Reimbursify or Mintea or provide super bills. What are your thoughts on those options?
I love all of them, right? So my whole approach is that you have to figure out the structure that works for you and how you want to serve, right? And so if you want to partner with a reimbursement company, if you want to offer a certain number of reduced fee spots, please do that. Do it consciously within the context of your total financial needs, because it's possible you might not even know what that is. Right? So start there. Like start with, what do I need to earn to be okay? What do I need? This is my good, better, best. What do I need to earn to be just barely okay every month and not go in the red? Good. What do I need to earn realistically when people sometimes cancel, and this, like, I can put into my retirement and pay off my student loans and do like be comfortable and happy. Better. Best, nobody ever cancels. Everyone pays my full rate. I work every single week that I intend to work. That's the maximum amount that I can earn based on this structure. Best. Know those numbers, because they will guide you in terms of like, how many reduced fee clients can I have? What full fee do I need to charge? And like, can I afford to panel through a third-party company? Like, it gives you the foundation to make informed decisions about your fees and your money and your service.
Right. But start with the formula. Know your own number for yourself and your family. Use that as your springboard. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Can I ask how you handle cancellations and no-shows?
Fortunately, I don't have a lot of them. I don't know exactly why. I think it has partly to do with how I preface, I start all my clients and how I expect attendance. I have a 48-hour cancellation policy that has worked for me just fine so far. Most of the people that either can't cancel late or no show tell me to charge them. I know, bizarre. I'm like, how did I get lucky? But I also treat a lot of entrepreneurs. So like, they have similar structures in their own businesses, right? So that helps. But I think for me, if someone is canceling or not showing up, that's a clinical issue, and I'm going to address it before I start to build resentment. But otherwise, I charge my full fee, and everybody knows that. So they know what's going to happen. Like this spot's your spot, so you can pay for it and not come. That's fine.
Okay. So before we get into how people can follow you or work with you, is there anything about this topic that we haven't covered that you wanted to make sure to mention?
That's a good question. I would say, kind of on that same theme of like know your numbers in your business, I would say get your own personal money house in order. Like, start looking at your bank account weekly. Use a financial tracking app. Like, really start to dig into your own relationship with your own money and how it shows up in your life and the way that you relate to it. Because if you don't do that, the rest of this is going to be a lot harder.
Yes. Yeah. Makes total sense. Well, this was very intriguing and gets the gears turning for me. I was so inspired when we spoke at Laura's retreat and hearing about your journey and your twins and your husband and the program, etc. So it's been wonderful to follow along. So fill everybody in on anything that you have upcoming, best way to follow you, and people interested in working with you.
Absolutely. So the Facebook group is the Balanced Practice Community. That's balanced with a D. Please join. Please join. We love it. It's growing. It's wonderful. It's so amazing. I'm so proud of it. And I'm in there, several times a week answering questions and offering, my feedback on things. I'm very active in there. I am very active in there. Maybe a little too much. But then my website, balanced, again with a D, privatepractice.com. You can find out all the information about some of the DIY courses that I have, about one-on-one coaching with me. In fact, on this topic, I have a couple of fee-related courses. I have Fee Setting Success, which really breaks some of the standard money mindset barriers that we have to fee setting and really walks through like all the different ways that you can set fees that will be in integrity for you. And then the other course that I'm really proud of is Fee Increase Framework, which helps you approach fee increases both from a strategic level, but also bring it clinical and really dive into my conversations with clients, really into the therapy room. So there's a couple courses I have. And then for one-on-one coaching, just reach out, let me know what you're interested in, and we'll talk.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all that you shared, for being so open, and also for being such a trendsetter for all of us out there and really advocating for us stepping into our own value. So
thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
If you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. This will help others find us and benefit as well. The Compassionate Climb podcast represents the opinions of Julia Napini and her guests. The information provided is intended for educational purposes only and should not be taken as legal advice. If that is what you are seeking, please consult an attorney.